It's Ash from Super Videos back for another video for Season 9 of The Walking Dead. This is gonna be my review for episode 909, the mid-season premiere for Season 9 called Adaptation. Now overall, I would say this was a solid episode. There was definitely a lot of great iconic moments and some crazy Easter eggs in this episode that made this episode stand out. It wasn't anything mind-blowing, it was just that it had little pieces here and there that were very exciting and interesting, and also the overall arc that the episode had was pretty good, and I would say it was a good enough mid-season premiere, or a solid mid-season premiere for moving the story forward, but at the same time giving us some, crazy Easter eggs or cool, interesting scenes here and there to make us love the episode even more. So starting off with the beginning, so we have them getting out of the graveyard that they were at where Jesus was killed. Now, some people may say that that particular scene was a bit too quick and that it was just over in an instant. And I would kind of agree with that, but at the same time, I think that because there was a lot more to it than just the graveyard scene, they didn't want to push that more than needed to be. And I definitely think that they could have added a little bit more, but at the same time, I was fine the way it was. But of course we have the crazy end to that scene where we have the Whisperer opening the gate. That was absolutely great, and it's just one of those things where it adds to the story. It makes the Whisperers more realistic, makes them more believable, and fleshes out their story and who they are as a group more than the comics did. And this wasn't the only instance of that. We saw a little bit more of this later on in the episode as well. But the other thing that I do want to mention is that we can pretty much say rest in peace, Jesus. Am I disappointed that they didn't show them putting him down? Yes, absolutely. But does it really matter that much? Not really, because he got an iconic death and that was it. So it would have been cool to, give him the right send-off, I would say, and show someone putting him down, maybe Aaron. I think Aaron did put him down in this episode, but it was just way too quick, and they didn't even focus on it at all. So I am a little bit disappointed in that sense, but at the same time, it is what it is. He got an iconic death. Maybe it's asking for too much for him to get a great send-off after his iconic death. But then after that, we have the group trying to get back to Hilltop, and they get to this bridge. And there are Whisperers/Walkers at this bridge. I absolutely loved what they did in this scene, from them kind of blocking both ends of the bridge to Daryl shooting the Whisperer in the leg, or the Walker, or who he thought was the Walker, in the leg, to make sure whether it was a Walker or not a Walker. And of course the first one was a Walker, and the next one was not a Walker. It was a Whisperer. They screamed because of course he didn't shoot them in the head. Of course, if Daryl shoots them in the head, they're gonna die right away, and he won't ever know if it was a Whisperer or a Walker. So this was not only clever on Daryl's part to shoot the quote-unquote Walkers somewhere aside from the head to see if it's a Walker or a Whisperer, but it's also very clever from a storytelling perspective, from the writer's perspective, because this fleshes out the Whisperers a lot more, and it delves into who the Whisperers are as a group a lot better than the comics did. So I absolutely enjoyed that. I thought that it was done great, and I think this was one of the highlights of this episode, this particular scene. And then of course we have them unmasking Lydia and capturing her and bringing her back to Hilltop. I thought that the introduction of Lydia was done pretty well. We did definitely see how terrified she was in her eyes. Great performance by the actress that plays Lydia, and pretty much right away, we see a difference between that Whisperer and the Whisperer that we just saw earlier that killed Jesus. You know what I mean? We saw him up close and personal. We saw his facial expression, but we see how different Lydia is. And they're definitely putting little things in there to make us appreciate that this is a different type of Whisperer. So I absolutely loved what they did, and I loved that they brought that comic scene to life when they had Lydia say, "Please don't kill me." I thought that was absolutely cool. Now moving into Negan as a free man. So we have Negan getting out of a cell, looking around Alexandria, and he even goes to where Judith and Michonne live, and he kind of looks around. He finds a drawing that Judith made of Rick, Michonne, Daryl, and RJ, which was pretty cool. But then right before Negan leaves, he notices a pocket watch next to where Judith's bed is. And that's where the scene ends. Now, a couple things. One, I don't understand what Negan's plan was going there. Was he trying to go talk to Judith? Was he trying to kidnap Judith? What was he trying to do? That's one thing. I hope they clear that up sometime in the future, because it just didn't make sense. But then after that, we see that, Negan has a new style, which is pretty cool. Not only does he have the pocket watch around his neck, which is not only crazy because it's Judith's and it shows the connection Negan has with Judith, but also at the same time, it's an Easter egg because the pocket watch was a big component, or it was one of the key belongings of Glenn. Of course, Herschel gave Glenn that watch, and Glenn died. Glenn was killed by Negan. So it all came around, it seemed. So that, I think, was a great Easter egg for them to have in there. But aside from that, look at what Negan is wearing. I didn't notice that initially before watching the episode, but if you take a look, you can see that it seems like it's Rick's shirt. I mean, I don't know if Negan and Rick are the same size, if they can wear the same thing, but it seems like it's kind of the same style of shirt that Rick was wearing in season 9. And to kind of add to that, the style that Negan has at this point, the short gray beard and the hairstyle, it kind of matches Rick's style. So it's almost like Negan was cosplaying as Rick in this episode, which was pretty interesting. And that was another cool Easter egg that they had in there. We have Judith catching Negan, trying to escape, which I thought was pretty cool. I didn't see that coming. Absolutely loved that. But Judith lets him go. What's with that? I mean, it doesn't really make sense. That's the only kind of big issue that I had with this episode. Why would Judith just let Negan go? Of course, we do know she does come back later, and they do have another scene together after, but what was the point of Judith just letting Negan go? I know that they had this conversation and Negan got into Judith's head, but I don't know. I mean, I would have thought Judith would maybe threaten Negan a bit more than she did. But it is what it is. We have Negan escaping and Judith not really stopping him, because Negan, of course, promises that he will never hurt anyone again and that he will never return. But I love that Judith says, if I see you again, I'm gonna shoot. That was pretty cool. I gotta say, that was very cool. But I wanted there to be a bit more between them before she lets him go. We have Negan going out, trying to get back to the sanctuary. Now, what's interesting is that there's one particular scene. We have Negan getting some water from a river, and then he throws up. But if you pay attention, it seems like Negan goes back to the site of the clearing from 701 or 616, however you want to look at it, when he's drinking the water and he throws up. That's interesting. I could be completely wrong about that, but maybe he goes back to the same site. If he does, that opens the door to so much more in terms of who Negan is and where his mindset is at the moment. And when he is throwing up, is he throwing up because of the water, because there was something in the water, or is he throwing up because he's remembering the events of 701? That's definitely something very interesting, and I thought that was a great Easter egg. Next Easter egg is also for Negan. Now, I will do a second standalone video talking just about these Negan Easter eggs, but there's one scene where he is grabbing stuff from a sack, and the sack has some blood on it and everything. Now, if you think about it, that could also be an Easter egg for something that might come up in the future. In the comics, there is a scene where Negan uses a sack to put something in there, to bring to Rick, who's of course alive in the comic book, after he gets out. I'm not going to reveal what that is, but it seems like they're doing an Easter egg to that. I think that might be what's happening here. And who knows? In the future, we might see the sack come back into play, and, there might be something in there that either Michonne or Daryl are going to be very, very interested or surprised to see. But I don't want to get into much detail there because I'm going to reveal a little bit more than I want to from the comic book. But we have Negan going to a store getting a leather jacket, which I thought was great. But then we have Negan getting attacked by wild dogs when he's there. Now, that particular scene where he throws a walker into the room and locks it or closes it and there are wild dogs in there is very, I would say, twisted. That was a crazy scene, to be honest. But aside from that, the wild dogs are actually another Easter egg. This connects to Negan's story in 901 about the stray dogs that he had when he was a kid. So it's like a reference or an Easter egg to that story that he told. So that also came full circle as well, which was pretty great. But we have Negan going back to the sanctuary. He sees that there's no sanctuary left, that it's destroyed. And I think at that point we see Negan break down a little bit. But he does find his loyal supporter, who he does come and later on kill. But that's pretty much it. That's everything in terms of Negan going back to the sanctuary. He goes back, finds there's nothing there for him, finds one of his supporters and does a sort of mercy kill, and then he just bounces. Decides to go back to Alexandria. Finds a motorcycle. He's just riding back to Alexandria on the motorcycle, and Judith is in the middle of the road. He shoots Negan. That was pretty cool, and of course it does connect to what Judith told Negan, I will shoot you if I see you again. Negan crashes the motorcycle. They talk a little bit, and Negan reveals that he wants to go back to his cell and that there's nothing out there for him. And that's pretty much Negan's story. That's it. We don't know what happens. We didn't see him go back to Alexandria, so they could still throw something at us where he doesn't necessarily go back. But as it stands, it seems like Negan got an odd remix of his comic storyline. And instead of walking into the sunset, he's just going back to his cell after finding there's nothing out there for him. But that kind of disappoints me a little bit because it seems like we're not going to or probably won't get any of future Negan's story that we think we're going to get, which is disappointing. But at the same time, it feels like maybe they ended Negan's story a little bit too quickly. You know what I mean? Like they could have done a little bit more with him before they just throw him into the cell again or have him reveal that he wants to go back to the cell. But I would say I liked what they did with Negan's story, but at the same time, it could have been done a little bit differently. Again, it's open-ended. We don't know what happens with him. We don't know if he's going to really go back to his cell or if something else is going to happen. But that's pretty much it for Negan. Moving on into the group going back to Hilltop. So we have them bringing Jesus' dead body back to Hilltop. We have the Hilltoppers reacting to Jesus' death, which I thought was pretty well done. I love that. But Tara is in charge now. I don't know how I feel about that. I know Tara is more useful now and she's more interesting now, but is she really the best candidate to lead Hilltop? I don't think so. But we have one of the Hilltoppers, Tammy Rose, who we have seen in previous episodes earlier on in season 9, coming in and wanting justice. She wants the people that killed Jesus dead. And that makes sense. And just to add to that, I love that they are bringing that in because it makes the Hilltoppers not only more useful and the characters more useful and, fleshes out their characters more, but also it's realistic. It makes sense for them to want that. You know what I mean? But Michonne talks to Daryl. Michonne wants Daryl to lead or help Tara lead the Hilltop. But Daryl doesn't want that and, he doesn't think that he should be leading. But there's a back and forth with them with that. But I love that they have a little scene in there where we have Michonne saying them bringing Jesus back to Hilltop will help in, the Hilltoppers trusting them more than they have before and seeing that they're on the same side. So I love that they did that because, of course, them bringing Jesus back means that the Hilltoppers can have closure. And, that could help them understand that they're on the same side because Michonne and the others went through a lot of trouble to bring Jesus back. And they didn't need to do that. They brought them back because they care about Hilltop. You know what I mean? But also, I love that they brought another piece of it in there where we have Daryl talking to Michonne, telling her that, he's sorry that he couldn't do the same thing for Michonne, bring Rick back for her. I thought that was very cool. I absolutely loved that. And I love Michonne's response saying, I'm sorry I couldn't do that for both of us. That was absolutely cool. I really loved that. We have Daryl, Tara, and Michonne interrogating Lydia and even threatening to kill her. But, she just doesn't say anything. She pretends like she knows nothing. But then, at some point, Daryl finally breaks her when he threatens her and says that I'll take you up there and let the community do whatever they want to because they are thirsty for blood right now because of what you did to their leader. And that finally breaks Lydia, and she begins talking and revealing some information about the Whisperers. Lydia mentions her mother and her group, and there's something that she brings up which I absolutely love because I think it adds to who the Whisperers are and fleshes out their story. She says, "We protect the dead and they protect us." I absolutely love that. And, she does mention that Lydia and her mother Alpha have been in places like this before, but places like this don't protect you. They always fall. And I absolutely love that she brings that up because it fleshes out their story a bit more and it gives some backstory to Alpha and the Whisperers in general and Lydia as well. We have Lydia saying, "Me and my mom saw it happen over and over again when it comes to the communities falling and the dead taking over." I absolutely love that. But Henry saves Lydia when Daryl is trying to get her up there. And, we are beginning to see Henry and Lydia connect, which is pretty cool. So Lydia opens up to Henry, talks to him a little bit, even says her name to him. He didn't reveal her name until that point, which is pretty cool. But Daryl is up there listening to everything. So that was pretty clever on Daryl again, sticking around to see what Lydia is going to say when she feels more safe, when she's with Henry. So that was also great to see. And then aside from that, we have a scene between Eugene and Rosita. We have Eugene confessing his love to Rosita, but before he does that, he's shot down again. This is like the second time. I'm sure Rosita knew what he was gonna say, but, she just bounced. But this is the second time this is happening. But that was all great. But then also we have Rosita revealing to Siddiq that she's pregnant, and Siddiq is the father, just like the comics. So it seems like the comic storyline is coming to life as far as Eugene, Siddiq, and Rosita is concerned. The love triangle. But Eugene hears everything, so Eugene knows that Rosita is pregnant and Siddiq is the father. But the only thing that's different is that Father Gabriel is in this mix as well. In the comics, it was just 3. Eugene, Rosita, and Siddiq. In the show, there's 4. Rosita is not fooling around with 3 other guys. No, it's still 2 guys, Father Gabriel and Siddiq. But we have, 4 people involved. In the comics, it was just 3 people. And then we have the ending where we have Alden and Luke looking around, trying to find Yumiko and the others, but they are captured by the Whisperers and Alpha. I absolutely love 2 things that they did here. One of these things that I absolutely loved when it comes to this scene was when Alpha just stands there. And Luke is like, well, that's kind of creepy. That's odd. You know what I mean? I loved that. I absolutely loved that. And then they see the Whisperers surrounding them. But the other thing that I absolutely love is Alpha throws the bow and says, "End of the trail." Of course, they were following the trail. They were following the bows. But then they realized that the Whisperers put that as a trap to capture them. I absolutely love that. And she, of course, pulls out her double-barrel shotgun, points it at them, and says, "That's where the trail ends," or something like that. Love that. Love seeing Alpha in this episode. I think that it was great. But, I am disappointed a little bit because I wanted to hear that "don't move" scene from the comics. She could still say that, but it just doesn't have the same impact. It would have been cool just to see it right there, because that's exactly where it was in the comic book. So that's the only nitpick that I have, that I wanted to see that. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video. If you like what you see, press like, subscribe for more content, and press the bell button to receive notifications for daily uploads. And while you're at it, check out my gaming channel, Jedi Age Gaming.